Welcome to iFire Story. This is your go-to spot for gripping tales of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. From true infidelity stories to cheating wife chronicles and Reddit's wildest family dramas, we dive deep into the raw emotions and twists that keep you hooked. Whether it's a lost love saga or a shocking cheating audio story, we've got it all. So, hit that subscribe button, grab some popcorn, and let's spark some stories that'll set your heart ablaze. All right, let's get honest for a moment. What about this tale? The situation is quite intricate. It's not something I ever imagined I would share with anyone, much less a crowd of people online. Yet here I stand, feeling the urge to express what's on my mind. Here we go. I am Jennifer, 45 years old, separated, a single child, his name Jacob. Honestly, it feels as though my life is stuck in a loop, like a tired old tune. I work as a nurse during the night shift. It's the sort of role that exposes you to experiences that challenge your perceptions, and eventually, you find a way to adapt to it all. One becomes accustomed to the peculiar hours, the relentless fatigue, and the tales that send shivers down your spine. So, what does that imply for my life beyond my job? It's essentially absent. Each day unfolds with the routine of heading to work, returning home, attempting to find rest, and then repeating the cycle once more. 5 evenings each week, this routine has woven itself into the fabric of my existence. Yet, there remains a singular element that prevents me from utterly unraveling, rolling the ball down the lane. Honestly, I understand it seems a bit, shall we say, reminiscent of something your grandmother might do. Yet, my affection for it remains strong. It serves as my refuge. Last year, I decided to join a league, seeking a new pastime, and to my surprise, I found that I have a knack for it. I actually qualified for a tournament, an authentic, genuine tournament, just 3 hours away. I felt an overwhelming sense of excitement. I had been honing my skills for months. It felt as though a fragment of my past, before the divorce, was resurfacing. But then, the harsh truth of my circumstances struck me with overwhelming force. Who was set to look after my son? He is, quite simply, a teenager. And he possesses, shall we say, a certain defiance in his character. He's not precisely the sort of child you can trust to be on his own for an entire weekend. On my last attempt, I returned home to discover that one of his friends had chosen to assess the structural integrity of my garage using his truck. It lacked beauty. So I considered, well, his father. He will take him. Yet, as it often happens, destiny, or perhaps simply the whims of Murphy's Law, had different intentions. On watch. That weekend. Isn't it just the ideal moment? It seems I've hit a wall. This tournament is absolutely essential for me to attend. I've been putting in a lot of effort, and I can't just leave my son by himself. So, I took the action that any diligent, albeit somewhat frustrated parent would take. I gathered our things and made my way to the hotel. It featured a pool indoors. I got out of bed, stretched my limbs, and headed to rouse my son from his slumber. He lay in a deep slumber, nestled snugly beneath the blankets. I nudged him softly, and he let out a groan before turning onto his side. I mentioned that I was heading out for some breakfast and inquired if he would like to join me. He muttered a few words about pancakes, which made it clear that he was awake. We made our way to the hotel restaurant, which featured the usual spread of a hotel breakfast buffet: chewy eggs, crunchy bacon, and those tiny muffins that always seemed to lack moisture. My son piled his plate high with pancakes and syrup, while I chose a more prudent omelet. We lingered in the stillness, savoring our meal, relishing the serene morning ambiance. Following breakfast, I inquired if there was anything he wished to pursue before I needed to return to the bowling alley. He brightened at once. He mentioned that there's a mall close by. They possess a GameStop. I've been searching for this game, and it seems they might have it in stock. Honestly, malls aren't really my thing. They're bustling, loud, and they consistently give me the impression that I'm overspending. However, my son is not one to demand much. He's a great kid, honestly. Thus, I consented. We made our way to the mall, bustling with crowds, and went directly to GameStop. He discovered the game he had been searching for, a pre-owned title that, for reasons unknown, was priced at nearly $60. I was utterly astonished. Are you kidding me? His excitement was palpable, and since he rarely makes requests, I couldn't help but let out a sigh as I reached for my wallet. I purchased the game, and he smiled at me, a sincere, joyful smile that made it all worthwhile. We lingered for a few more hours at the mall, indulging in window shopping and observing the ebb and flow of the crowd. It was genuinely pleasant, enjoying some meaningful moments together, just the two of us. It brought back memories of his childhood, a time untouched by the turmoil of adolescence. That evening, as I returned to the bowling alley, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. Feeling rejuvenated after quality time with my son, I was prepared to deliver my finest performance on the bowling lane. Interestingly, I perform better at bowling when I'm feeling fatigued and under pressure. I slipped from second place down to fifth. It was challenging, yet I made an effort to maintain an optimistic outlook. One of the girls I bowl with back home, Kelly, has actually claimed victory in the tournament. I felt immense joy for her. She has put in a tremendous amount of effort, and she truly earned it. Following the awards ceremony, several of us chose to head out and celebrate. They extended an invitation to me, and I assured them I would attend, provided I wasn't responsible for driving. The bar we visited was conveniently located just across the street from the hotel, making it an ideal choice. Honestly, who feels like getting behind the wheel after a night of festivities? We placed our drink orders, and I chose to treat myself a bit. I don't indulge in drinks often, but I appreciate a glass of wine from time to time. Let's just say I indulged a bit more than I intended. We shared laughter, engaged in conversation, and rejoiced in Kelly's victory. It was an enjoyable experience. I believe I finally found my way back to the hotel around 1 a.m. I felt a pleasant buzz, accompanied by a sense of joy and tranquility. I stepped into our room, finding my son peacefully asleep in his bed, the glow of the TV illuminating the space. A smile crept across my face as I reflected on the serene expression he wore. I made my way to the bathroom, slipped into my pajamas, and returned to settle into bed. The room seemed to swirl, though in reality it was still. I rested my head on the pillow, drew the covers around me, and attempted to concentrate on the film flickering on the screen. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, slumber eluded me. I found myself lying there, reflecting on the tournament, my son, and the broader aspects of life. It must have been close to 3 a.m. when I noticed my son stirring in his bed. I glanced at him, noticing the rhythmic rise and fall of his blanket. My initial reaction was, could he be? It's a completely understandable thought for any parent, wouldn't you agree? Particularly when it comes to a son in his teenage years. He crept along, deliberately slow, likely under the impression that I was lost in slumber. The more I observed, the deeper my fascination grew. It may seem strange, but it's the reality. A peculiar wave of excitement began to wash over me. I found myself contemplating the injustice of it all, yet I was powerless to resist. I felt a rush of excitement, aware of his actions just a short distance from me. It was an illicit sensation, a secret, and it was utterly captivating. After roughly 10 minutes, I found myself experiencing emotions I hadn't encountered in quite some time. I found myself pondering, will he ever? Perhaps it was the wine, or perhaps the solitude, but I reached my limit. I suddenly asked, do you require any assistance with that? I considered that if he declined, I could simply act as though I were speaking in my dreams. To my astonishment, he agreed. And that was the moment of realization. What shall I do next? That solitary word yes lingered in the atmosphere, a clear and irrefutable reality. A sudden transformation occurred, as if a switch had been activated, a barrier shattered. The possibilities and regrets slipped into the background, giving way to an uncanny feeling of destiny. I felt like an observer, detached from the unfolding scenes of my own existence. A peculiar sense of detachment washed over me, as if reality itself had slipped away. It felt like I was transcending my physical form, shedding the limitations imposed by ethics and the norms of society. I rose to my feet, a peculiar numbness in my legs, and made my way to his bed. The room was enveloped in the gentle illumination of the TV, creating elongated, warped shadows that waltzed across the walls. I paused at the brink of his bed, my heart racing within my chest, a desperate rhythm echoing in the stillness. The warmth emanating from him was undeniable, a magnetic force that beckoned me nearer. I paused briefly, my fingers lingering near the blanket's edge, an unspoken inquiry suspended in the atmosphere. With careful intention, I extended my hand and gently lowered the covers, just enough to expose him. He lay there, his eyes wide, a blend of astonishment and an elusive emotion, something I couldn't fully grasp. His hand remained clenched around himself, a quiet acknowledgement of the moment I had intruded upon. I paused for a moment, gazing at him, attempting to comprehend the unfolding situation. It felt as though I was gazing upon an unfamiliar face, a rendition of my son that was entirely new to me. It was an odd blend of recognition and novelty, a merging of boundaries between mother and something beyond. An undeniable attraction surged within me, compelling me to reach out and connect with him. I extended my hand, a slight tremor coursing through my fingers, and softly removed his hand. His skin radiated warmth, a subtle dampness that sent a delightful shiver coursing down my spine. Here, I murmured softly, my voice just above a whisper. Allow me to assist you with that? I averted my eyes, following the contours of his form, the delicate bends and sharp edges that felt both known and oddly fresh. I could perceive the signs of his awakening, the nuanced shifts that signified the journey from youth to maturity. I started to draw nearer, the atmosphere heavy with unvoiced longings and taboo reflections. I observed my hand as it started to glide, my fingers carefully outlining measured designs along his form. It possessed a gentle quality while maintaining a solid presence. The juxtaposition was utterly captivating. I sensed my breath quickening, my body reacting to the illicit caress. I observed the emergence of a glistening droplet at the tip, a delicate sign of anticipation. I leaned in, my tongue flicking out to savor it, the briny flavor igniting a surge of energy within me. He flinched at the touch, a quiet gasp slipping from his mouth. "Are you asking if I should?" I murmured, my tone thick with longing. He nodded, his gaze locked onto mine, a wordless request shimmering in their depths. I bowed my head, my lips grazing his skin, the feeling igniting a surge of warmth within me. I enveloped him with my lips, the flavor and sensation igniting a wave of delight throughout my entire being. As I shifted, I sensed his fingers weaving through my hair, softly tugging. I whispered to him, my voice low and husky, that if he dared to pull, he might just enjoy the outcome. He tugged gently, and a fresh wave of longing washed over me. I urged him to push further, and he complied, while I reciprocated with a firm grip. The feelings were intense, a blend of enjoyment and remorse, of longing and embarrassment. It felt as though I was ensnared in a tempest, swirling and shifting under the influence of powers I could not command. I sensed his body tighten, a shiver coursing through him as he approached his peak. His release was intense, a wave of warmth that enveloped my mouth, a flavor that felt both known and taboo. In the aftermath, a profound silence enveloped the room. We reclined together, our forms entwined, our breaths blending softly in the stillness of the room. The atmosphere was heavy with unvoiced feelings, burdened by the gravity of our recent actions. "We can't let this become routine," I murmured at last, my voice scarcely above a whisper. I recognized it as a falsehood, a frantic effort to hold on to a shred of normality. Yet the words resonated with a sense of emptiness, a hollow echo reminiscent of a promise I understood I could never fulfill. We attempted to converse, to unravel the events that had transpired, yet language felt insufficient. The feelings were intensely vivid, intricately layered, and deeply intertwined. And then, as if compelled by an unseen energy, we gravitated towards one another, the longing flaring up like an uncontrollable blaze. He requested it once more, and I realized I couldn't say no. The guilt lingered, a persistent whisper in the recesses of my thoughts, yet it was overshadowed by an intense wave of longing. Oh my goodness, I thought. Is he prepared once more? I pondered whether it was wise for him to have arrived so soon, and soon my thoughts spiraled into a flurry of other possibilities. The boundaries separating mother and son, as well as the distinctions between right and wrong, became hazy, twisted, and nearly vanished. We found ourselves ensnared in a tempest of unspoken longings, a ballet of fervor and remorse, a clandestine bond that would eternally unite us. In that moment, we found ourselves reflecting on all that had transpired. The atmosphere in the room was dense, laden with unvoiced feelings, burdened by the gravity of our actions. I understood, at my core, that the events that unfolded were fundamentally misguided in every sense of the word. Yet the guilt, that weighty, stifling sensation, it was ephemeral. It would arrive in surges, overwhelming me only to pull back, leaving a peculiar, nearly disquieting feeling of expectation in its wake. I repeatedly reassured myself, this must not occur once more. I attempted to engage in a dialogue with my own thoughts, seeking a way to harmonize our actions with the truth of our connection. Yet the reality was that the boundaries had become indistinct, perhaps even completely wiped away. As I pondered further, a deeper understanding began to emerge. I had no desire to wipe them away. It felt like an enigmatic truth, an exhilarating danger that throbbed just below the facade of our mundane existence. The weight of guilt and shame lingered, hidden in the corners of the mind. Yet they were eclipsed by an unusual, nearly intoxicating feeling of control and longing. A cold realization settled within me. This was far from over. This was merely the start. A fresh start awaits. Something intricate, something perilous, something exhilarating. I found myself contemplating various aspects, alternative possibilities, and different avenues to delve into this emerging dynamic. I began to ponder the future and how it might unfold. I envisioned fresh methods of connection, innovative paths to discovery, and daring approaches to shatter every rule we had ever understood. And that's when the delightfully mischievous thoughts began to surface. Concepts that ignited a thrill within me. Concepts that sent shivers down my spine. Concepts that challenged my entire understanding of who I am. I began to ponder the idea of doing this once more, but in a different location. What if we explored the limits even more? What if we were to explore the possibilities? I believe I'll set that aside for now. Here's a question I'd like to pose to you. What actions would you take? In a moment like this, ensnared by a tempest of unspoken longings, how would you respond? Would you take off running? Would you attempt to let go of the past? Or might you venture forth? That's it for today's fiery tale on iFire Story. If you got caught up in this infidelity story or Reddit cheating drama, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. What would you do in this situation? Subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next true story of love gone wrong. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay curious and keep the spark alive.